Hello there, ladies and gents. So in today's video, we're going to talk about not knowing who you are, not being able to identify your wishes, your needs, your desires, and why this happens to so many people. They're adults and they just have no idea how to figure out what they actually want. And we're going to talk about certain attitudes parents have of neglecting, abusing, idolizing, yes, and overprotecting their children, which causes this problem of not actually helping the children create a sense of self, of being separate from one's parents, and therefore in their adult phase not having any idea who they are. And this causes tremendous anxiety as well as a number of other problems as well. So before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know that before the year is out, I will be launching the Inner Mastery Lab. And this is a program created specifically for children of narcissists who want to figure out how to connect with their true selves after having lived an entire life within their false self. I'm going to teach you how you actually find your true self and how you can nurture your true self so that you build a sense of solidity, a home, so that you have a safe place to operate from and to go back to in your daily life. If you're interested in the Inner Mastery Lab, be sure to click on the link at the end of the video in the description, and you can leave your email and your name, and soon, over the next few days, I will be getting in touch with more information. Now, let's talk about what actually causes people to not know who they are in their adult phase. Well, let's talk about raising children, right? Children, people who are born, they aren't actually a clean slate. Of course, we know that certain things in a person's personality are a result of the way they were raised, of things they learned. But there's also a portion of our personality that is inherited through genetics, even through having been in our mom's uterus while she felt certain things and was overloaded with certain emotions and hormones. All of this affects the way that you regulate your emotions, the way your brain functions, and the way that you end up having a personality. Now, the function of parents, their role is to create a safe haven, a safe space within which that individual personality can develop. This means that a healthy parent knows that the child is a separate being. The child is not there to be the person that the healthy parent needs the child to be, because the healthy parent has also individuated from his or her parents, right? And this means that they are capable of seeing people as separate individuals from themselves. Not so with the not so with the narcissist, right? And even the codependent is completely dependent on outer sources in order to know how to act, what opinions to have. And the narcissist depends on outer sources for his or her narcissistic supply. So they're not self-generating their supply. They're not self-generating their inner guidance, their sense of stability. It comes from the outside. And the way that parents create a safe haven for that individual being to develop is by doing a few things. So for one, you validate the things that the child produces. So the child's opinions, the child's perception of reality, the child's emotions. When this child produces these things and puts them out in the world, there's a person there who actually accepts all of these products, these things that come from inside the child. And this person tells her, hey, it's okay that you're feeling that. Tell me more about what you're feeling. When you have this sort of reaction of validating whatever it is that comes from inside the child, right? Validating doesn't mean that that everything is okay. Yeah, but when it comes to limits, the child understands that those limits are there for a coherent reason. It's not like haphazard, in the morning I'm going to punish you for this, but at nighttime I'm not going to punish you for this. So there isn't this oscillating type of treatment that the child gets from her caretakers that leads her to be completely confused about what is right and what's wrong. So number one, for parents to create a safe haven for the individuality to develop, they need to validate the existence of what's coming out from the child. that when parents, we know this through Melanie Klein, for example, when a mother is actually mentally, emotionally present with her baby, like during breastfeeding, when she actually looks inside the baby's eyes, and the moment that she's looking inside the baby's eyes, she's present and she's connecting with that little individual that exists inside the baby. This gives the baby validation of its own existence. And oftentimes when we have a mom or a dad that are mentally ill, or they have their own issues, and they're off in la la land, or because they're alcoholics, or because they're concerned with their own pain, oftentimes they're not really present to look into the child's eyes and for the child to feel like she is receiving validation of her own existence, right? And when parents do this, when they validate what comes from the child, when they are actually emotionally and psychologically present during interactions with the child learns how to express himself or herself safely. And then what does she learn as a result of all of this? Number one, she learns that the things that come from inside of her, her emotions, her perceptions, she learns that they're okay. All right? She learns that there's no problem with feeling these things and with putting these things out there. So she learns that what she is made of is okay, right? Her products, her emotions, the things she puts out there, they're her. When they're validated, she feels validated. So she also learns she or he will also learn how to trust their own perception of things, right? The codependent depends on someone else to tell her or him who she or he is. So they don't trust themselves. Everything that comes from inside of themselves is not validated. And so they have to find a narcissist that has a stronger personality to tell them who they need to be, right? And the narcissist has created a false self. He has no connection to his true self, and all of his acts, all of his or her behavior are aimed at getting narcissistic supply. So it's a completely external sort of relationship. Neither the narcissist nor the codependents actually relate to their true selves. They will relate to a false self, or they will find out how they should behave according to what will get them attention, right? The child who is validated, whose individuality is protected and nourished, she feels that she actually has an inner home. There is something inside her, something solid, a place she can operate from and go back to. This is something concrete she actually feels inside herself. The child who is raised in this way doesn't mind taking risks and making mistakes. She's okay with making mistakes, probably because when she made mistakes when she was a kid, there wasn't like a nuclear war or, some sort of huge catastrophe in his or her family home that made the child think, wait a second, so I have to completely control what I put out there, and I can't make a single mistake because my parents have these completely unstable reactions that scare the living crap out of me, right? So people who had stable, emotionally stable parents aren't so worried about taking risks and making mistakes. They don't think the world is going to end if they make a mistake. And this person who was protected in her individuality, validated and protected in her individuality, she can create bonds. It is not painful for her to bond with other human beings. Now, when, our first true love story is with our mom, with our caretakers. And that is the model for your future relationships. Because you need certain things from your mom. You need her to see you. If she doesn't see you, you will feel hungry. You will feel a void inside you. And you will need to find mechanisms in order to be seen. And the person who was validated, because she was seen and because she felt safe in her first model of a relationship, this translates into other relationships. And she can have partners. She feels normal in social environments. She doesn't feel like the odd one out, or like she can't be part of that, or she's not even part of the human family, or like she doesn't even want to be part of that. So it is very common for children of narcissists to develop schizoid tendencies. I don't need friends. I don't need human interactions. I'm going to be at home with my hobbies, with my projects, with my things, in my solitary activities, because quite frankly, I don't want any of that, whole forming bonds with people thing. We have those who develop avoidant characteristics, avoidant personality disorder characteristics. So they want to bond with other people. They feel loneliness, but they're so scared that they're weird and inferior and that everybody notices how horrible they are, how ridiculous they are, that they don't put themselves out there. They're just lost in their derealization, in their sense of disconnection, and in their loneliness, desperately wanting human connection, but having no idea how to get it. We have those who end up developing borderline personality disorder, who demonstrate not only a completely shifting sense of self, the person thinks there's something in the morning and something at night, but they have a great fear of abandonment, and they will end up being manipulative and having extreme reactions in order to avoid being abandoned. We have narcissistic personality disorder, which, as we know, is a person who uses a narcissistic defense in order to be seen, right? And because they're very uncomfortable with not being the center of attention, they will annihilate the sense of self of all of those who are around them, so they can't form healthy bonds. And we have the codependent, who is strongly attracted to narcissist because she has no sense of self, because she needs other people to tell her who she is or who he is. And all of these people have a hard time creating healthy bonds, because how can you feel safe to create a bond with another person? How can you know how to interact with this other person in a safe way if you never learned this? So the person who was not, the child who did not grow up in a loving environment where her products, the things that she put out there, were validated, she or he feels that his essence is wrong. The thing that they are made of is not good enough. They feel that they are trash. Deep inside, they're scared of looking inside because they feel they're only going to find trash and anything that's horrible and disgusting. They were told that the things they produce, their perceptions, their emotions, aren't good enough. These people, they don't take into account what they feel and what they think long enough to actually take these things seriously. Like, they might even have a perception about what is right and wrong for them, but since they don't trust anything that comes from inside themselves because they believe they're trash, they disregard these messages that their true self is trying to tell them. They disregard them because they believe, I don't know anything, right? This person will oftentimes feel empty inside, a nothingness, like their self has been stolen, or they might have extreme oscillations in their sense of self, they haven't rooted themselves in anything, in any self-perception, so they're all over the place, right? Or they might feel devastating loneliness, disconnection, derealization, depersonalization. They might look at the world and they might see no reason at all to be part of it. No reason at all to be part of it. These people often don't know how to take risks. They're perfectionists, and they punish themselves as violently as they were punished for their imperfections when they were kids. So they introjected their abusive moms or dads' voices, and they now have these voices in their heads, and they use these voices against themselves when they take a risk, when they try to do something and they make a mistake. It's almost as if they make a mistake, and the level of anxiety that they feel when they make this mistake, it's as if their whole world were going to fall apart. And that's how perfectionistic that they got from just having very irregular responses to the things that they put out there, right? Imagine you have to always step on eggshells. You don't know what you can say and what you can do because there's going to be some sort of weird response, right? You become really high-strung, you become really anxious, always on alert, always waiting for a disaster. So you're perfectionistic, you don't want to make mistakes. People who did not grow up being validated, she feels that she or he can't really exist in reality. Let me explain this one a little bit better. Reality is the here and now. If you feel that you are a piece of shit or that life is unsafe, we will often create mental mechanisms, defense mechanisms, in order to not actually be here. So for example, the narcissist lives in a state of basically constant dissociation. He's always dissociating because the narcissist depends on fantasy and confabulation to build a sense of self. The narcissist will lie about his or her attributes, and in order to maintain that fantasy, they're not actually in reality, they're dissociated somewhere. The codependent has a completely distorted sense of self. She has voices inside her or him that tell her or him that there's nothing that's good. And the codependent has these cruel, violent voices that are telling her that whatever it is that she needs is never inside herself, right? We have some people who develop maladaptive daydreaming. If you're a child and you're in a toxic environment, you can't run away, you can't fight back. So what do? Well, you do what the brain does when it's under stress and you're a child. You dissociate and you go off to fantasy land. And some people who grew up in abusive environments, they're in fantasy land to this moment. They don't have real relationships because they have fantasy relationships in their heads. They don't have the job they'd like to have because they spend hours fantasizing about being another person. So they exist and they feel strong and wonderful in their inner world where they've created a grandiose self. But they cannot actually exist and live out what they want to live in reality. Many of these people are going to adopt self-soothing mechanisms, which will involve compulsive anything. So compulsive eating, substance abuse, compulsive gambling, because of the heightened state of anxiety, which it was programmed into them when they were a child and they had to walk on eggshells all the time. Nobody can take all that anxiety for decades. So these people will find a way of not being completely here because it hurts. Their reality is painful. These people might develop anxiety or depression, and both of these, both anxiety and depression indicate that you're lost in thought. If you're depressed, you're lost in thoughts about the past. If you're anxious, you're lost in thoughts about what you did wrong or what might go wrong. In both cases, you're not actually here. You're not in your body breathing and safe and aware of what's going on around you. You're off in la-la land in your inner pain. So that's another issue that happens for children who were not raised in loving environments. They have a hard time being in the here and in the now, and they will adopt ways of distorting reality because their reality is so painful. Now, having said this, which attitudes do parents have that actually cause this splitting between the true self, right, and the person? What is it that parents do that ends up not creating a safe environment for a child's true self to develop? Well, we have the usual problems, right, like abuse. So verbal abuse, emotional abuse, repeating to the child that he or she is something, and repeating that over so many years that the child eventually believes that they are what you're telling them they are. And what you're telling them is that they're trash and that they're the reason why everything in your life went wrong. So this sort of verbal, emotional abuse, it keeps the child from feeling safe enough to individuate. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, teaches the child that abuse is normal and that that's what she deserves. Neglect teaches the child that anything else is more important than her. It teaches the child that she is alone. She's an orphan. There's no one there for her. So she might be left over with a devastating loneliness or a feeling of not existing at all, of being invisible. We need validation, constant, healthy validation with limits in order to feel that we even exist. Overprotecting one's children. This is really important because oftentimes, particularly if you come from Latin or Asian backgrounds. You might have a very strong family-oriented culture where anything parents do is validated. And if you see a parent who overprotects their child, oftentimes this is interpreted as love. And it's not love at all, because it is a parent's role to become unnecessary. If your parent did not teach you how to do adult things, if your parent did things for you whilst you were well over the age of someone who could be doing those things by themselves, this is a subtle form of abuse. Because whilst they cut your wings and whilst they keep you in an infantilized state, you are actually not well equipped to be an adult, and you don't feel safe. You know that you don't have social skills, you don't know how to hold down a job, you don't know how to do adult things. And so this is convenient for the parent who never built a sense of self. Because I don't have a sense of self, you are going to remain by my side for as long as I need you, so that I at least can feel like I am someone. I'm the mother of this person. I am the father of this person. So overprotecting children, keeping them infantilized, is a form of abuse, because they can't break free and become adults. And then, oh, look at that, I'm going to have a kid all by myself, all to myself for the rest of my life. Even if they're an adult, I'll keep them childish. Then I'll never have to be alone. Idolizing your children and giving them attention only when they make you look good teaches them that that is their function. You don't really care about anything else other than them making you look good. So when you idolize your children, you put them on a pedestal, and that's the only time they get attention, the true self of the child is still completely ignored. And the child is going to feel, even if she's getting attention, she's going to feel empty inside. And she's going to develop some sort of trouble with that, with her sense of self. To live vicariously through the child. You know, those people who are like, oh, I wanted to be a model, but I couldn't, so my child will be. I wanted to be a businessman, but I couldn't, so my child will be. This is a clear indication that you do not see your children as a separate individual. So the message that this sends to your children is that their role is to be an extension of you. But it's a crime to individuate. And that their only use is being an object, an empty vessel through which you as a parent can live your life or live your dreams that you were never able to live. So all of these things, abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual, neglect, overprotection, idolizing the child, or living vicariously through the child, having her live out your dreams, all of these things are ways of saying, I don't really care who you really are. It's not really good enough for me, because what's good for me is that you be who I need you to be, or that you act the way that I need you to act, or that you not bother me at all, because you're a pain, and I don't want to deal with you. All of these things deprive the child of an opportunity to develop a sense of individuality, to individuate from their parents, to create a sense of self. Abuse and neglect keep the child, the adult, not only normalizing abuse and neglect because they learned that this was normal, right? But also thinking that it's their fault that they didn't get the sort of love that they wanted. And children of, adult children of narcissists oftentimes stay close to their narcissistic mom or dad because they always have that hope that maybe if I try enough or if I stick around enough, eventually I won't be abused or neglected. So the person cannot individuate. We have this belief that the person who did us wrong is the person who needs to free us from our pain. And as children of narcissists, we keep going back to mom and dad in the hopes that now they will see me. Now they will make it all go away. Now they're going to validate that they do love me, that the past few decades were just, I don't know, whatever. There was something, whatever they were, but they love me. And if you are abused and neglected, oftentimes you don't understand that you need to let that go. Because they're not going to stop abusing and neglecting you now. So you cannot individuate because you always keep going back for their approval. If you are overprotected, you're confused as hell because you think that you're a bad, ungrateful child. Everyone around you is like, what? Your mom loves you. Your dad does this for you. Your mom does that for you. And you're like, yeah, it's true. I've never been hit. I don't have any bruises. But why do I feel so suffocated? How come it's so much better to not be in contact with my parents? Why do I feel invaded, right? And then you feel like you're a bad child and you don't have the right to separate from your overprotective parents because they love you. So you subject, you let them invade you, you don't individuate. If you're idolized or if your parents live vicariously through you, you will oftentimes create a narcissistic wound, a narcissistic trait where you create a personality for validation and you have no idea what you actually need or want. And oftentimes you're unhappy as hell. But, to everyone else, you're successful. So you can't even put your finger on what's going on. And what's going on is that you learned as a child that you needed to overachieve, that you needed to draw attention to yourself by being incredible. And this became a mechanism to regulate your sense of self. A mechanism that you depend on like a substance, in order to feel that you exist, in order to feel that you're good enough, right? So all of these things prevent the child as an adult from individuating in the sense of actually figuring out who they are. How can you become your own person if you're functioning, if your role in your family is to live the dreams that your parents didn't live, to experience those dreams? It's going to feel like you're betraying your parents. And everyone else is going to validate to you, yeah, you're doing great, you're successful. And you get lost in that narcissistic supply. Okie dokie. So, what I want to know is, do you identify with anything I said here? Do you feel that you were abused, neglected, overprotected, idolized, or that your parents lived vicariously through you? I want to know your insights. I want to know what's going on in your head emotionally. Write everything down in the comments. Remember, I will be launching the Inner Mastery Lab before the end of 2019. So if you want to be part of this program at discount prices, then leave your name in the link below that's in the description of this video. I will be getting in touch over the next couple of weeks with a beta price launch for the Inner Mastery Lab. So this is your opportunity to work with me deeply, right? Because I want to get a small group that I can give attention to everybody. And yeah, we'll be starting in December. And what else? That is all I wanted to talk to you guys about. Let me know if you have any doubts. Let me know your insights. Let me know what you want me to talk about. And I will be making videos about your questions. All right? Thank you. If you like the video, share it, like it. If you're... oh crap, I forgot the word in English. Subscribe. There we go. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep talking about these issues, if you thought this was helpful. And I'll be seeing you in a couple of days. I'll be posting a lot of videos before the year is out. Bye-bye.